Good afternoon, everybody. This is the final panel. We got to keep the energy going. See, okay. Oh, Michelle, we see some friends in the audience. But no, so great to be here with this great panel. We're here to talk about travel trends. So before we get going, we're going to do a little roundtable intros. 3 questions. So what's your role remit at the company you work for? How is traveler and/or traveler brands, traveler audiences part of your world? And personally or professionally, where's the last place you traveled and where's the next place you're traveling?
All right, I'll start. I'll try to remember all those questions.
Yeah.
So hi, everyone. Michelle Ogle. I'm the head of marketing and growth for Chase Travel. It's actually my first time working at a bank. I come from the travel industry, almost 20 years on the hotel side of the space. So bank world is definitely different. So we're spicing things up as we build this new line of business at Chase. What are travelers? Travelers are at the heart of everything we do. So we just launched a new brand. We launched a new line of business at Chase with this travel program to really create an end-to-end seamless experience for our card members to dream, discover, and book. I'll tell you that 1 in every $4 is spent on leisure travel on a Chase card. So we made some really big ambitions to build a travel business, acquired some tech companies to really create that seamless experience. And I can't wait to share a little bit more about what we've learned from these card members who really have travel as a key part of their DNA. In terms of where I've been and where I'm going. So I'm just coming off of spring break with my family. Oftentimes when you travel with kids, it's more of a trip, not a vacation. But I will tell you, we went to Grand Velas, Riviera Maya in Mexico. For anyone who has kids in the room, I highly recommend it. It is luxurious, all-inclusive, but lots of stuff to keep the kids busy. And then my next trip is in less than 2 weeks. I'm heading to India for a work trip. So a lot of our developers are out there, so I'm going to spend some time with them.
Love it. Nolan.
Hi, I'm Byron. I'm one of the co-founders of Dispatch. Long history in tech. Dispatch, generally speaking, distributes conversion opportunities for commerce into the far reaches of where they previously weren't. So be it physically in a hotel while you're traveling, while you're chatting, while you're in a game, we're taking a brand's commerce backend and distributing that out into the world for opportunities for conversion. My recent trip, somehow I've found myself, I think because of the conference circuit, in Vegas 3 times in 5 months. And we'll be going to Cannes for the very first time this June. So very excited about that.
That's great. You'll go to Brand Innovators there too, right?
Sure, you will all be there. Exactly. All of us New Yorkers will meet in France.
Perfect. Now Nolan. Yeah.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Nolan Johnson. I'm SVP of Media Partnerships at Grocery TV. In short, Grocery TV is putting video inside of grocery stores across the country. So basically taking what online retail media is and putting it in an in-store environment where 85% of shoppers still shop. You're probably wondering what a dude from grocery is doing up here talking about travel and tourism, and that would be because about 70% of our business is actually non-endemic to the store. So we work with a lot of different brands ranging from financial brands to tourist brands, tourism brands, which is why we're here. And if you think about that, it's just because of the audience that's household decision makers that are doing the shopping, and so there's a lot of opportunities for brands to make an impact during their weekly trips. In terms of where I've been and where I'm going, I had the luxury of going to middle of nowhere, Virginia, that I can't even remember the name. That was my last trip for a wedding. And up next, I think, is going to be, after a bunch of work travel, will be Scotland with a stopover in Iceland, which, by the way, if you didn't know, Iceland has a stopover program where they'll fund a leg of your trip if you stop over for at least 3 days. So go check that out on Chase Travel.
Thank you. That's good. Good attribution there too. Good. Appreciate that. Okay, so just quick context setting with some stats that we have around travel, and many of you probably know this, but international travel is booming this year. It's expected to grow by 15%, and thus far continuing on that trend. Some fun Memorial Day destinations from Chase Travel data that we pulled. Peru and Japan are the top 2 international destinations for coming up this in a few weeks in Alaska and Kentucky. And Kentucky also because of the Derby, but also PGA. So traveling other themes we're seeing around different traveling for obviously sports, music, cultural events. That was my last travel, was Dreamville in North Carolina, Live Nation Festival, and culinary, wellness, etc. And of course family, but lots of different trip trends. Remote hybrid work is changing things, and obviously we were talking about this before the panel about how people are shopping and engaging with the grocery store in particular, and certainly digitally with Byron. Business travel is obviously coming back in a big way, including Vegas, and online travel is obviously a huge battleground in place that lots of different players are in the mix, from paid, earned, et cetera, in that environment. So we'll get to the trends. So we're here for marketing, media, brand innovation trends. So what trends are you guys seeing in your businesses and, and with the brands you're partnering with? So maybe we'll start with Nolan. There we go.
Yeah, certainly. So we're seeing a lot of different, I guess, trends in our personal space with travel. What's interesting is like you'll see some like co-branded travel opportunities for people that are, playing in our space. I think what's mostly interesting though is like the opportunity to use dynamic creative in real time to bring messaging that makes the most sense to a consumer, right? Like if you think about marketing, the whole point of it is to connect a brand's purpose with a customer. And effective marketing is providing a solution to a customer when they're feeling their biggest pain point. And what we're seeing is that brands, for example, will take use of, let's say, like weather-triggered ads that are running to put a dynamic creative in front of someone. So, for example, I grew up in Minnesota, and so an example of that we're talking to customers about is during the cold winters when someone just walks in from the parking lot into the grocery store and it's negative 20 degrees, which I can attest is a real thing there, is that you can put an ad for a destination, let's say it's a summer getaway, or for example, like a cruise line is a huge partner of ours that will use weather targeting to be able to run that. And so it's how do you make sure that as a tourism brand that you're really putting that solution in front of people when they're feeling that biggest pain point that can, drive ultimate outcomes.
Back on. There we go. Byron, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a sort of verticalization that's happening in travel, especially within luxury, where you see a mix of retail brands, happening at the same time while you may be inside of a hotel. There's this thing, I personally find it a little bit tacky, but if you're in a hotel, say you're at the Ritz in Paris, there are these cases with products inside of them. It's almost like a physical retail media network inside the hotel.
Sounds amazing.
But you're in a mindset when you're traveling to shop, whether it's Fifth Avenue or it's inside your hotel. And again, trying to get into that very furthest and closest moment of intent, I think you see more and more of that entire world just merging together. And so we hear, where can you put it? The speaker from L'Oreal was talking about out of home. Can I just tap my phone on that case, or can I tap it on the furniture in my room or the teddy bear that's on my bed if I want more than one of them? I think just merging the entire idea of buy while I travel.
That's a good segue.
I was also at dinner with someone last night who's going to Peru on Friday. So
Group trip.
Validated on the data poll.
So we're really proud of our first-party data, right? We have a tremendous amount of transactional data across our various card products. And so borrowing from your point on really thinking about how we can truly become a lifestyle brand, partnership marketing, right? It's all about the company you keep. And so for us, as we're certainly a very established, mature financial services brand, we don't have any street cred in the travel space. So how can we really start to come into a very cluttered environment with a unique point of view? Well, we do that through the company we keep. So, for example, we have a partnership with Condé Nast that is in development right now, just in partnership with our travel editors and their publishers from some of their key books. But I say that because it's all about creating that credibility when you're trying to break through as a new line of business. So I think that's certainly one piece, understanding, of course, our customers' passion points, right, across, even outside of travel, because we want to show up in those very organic moments. The other thing I'll touch on really quickly is just related to the content we're creating, also leveraging the data that we see based on where our card members are traveling to. So we have a campaign that just launched at the end of Q1, and there's snippets of it in places that are Spain, and you may see some Asia in there, but really it's because that's where we see a really nice trend line of our card members going. And so we want to nod to, hey, we know you, and we're about to create something different, better, and special in the travel industry. Yeah. I'll say one thing too. The key pop culture moments is something that we're seeing. I'm sure we all are. There's Swifties in the audience, but we saw a spike in Spain and certainly in Paris next month because of her tour. Right. So thinking about understanding why our card members are traveling and really getting into pop culture cannot be ignored.
Well said. And that's connected to what I do, and not to maybe have leading experiences and events, but to your point, going where are people going and why for different cultural events, different experiences, where we show up, and how can we obviously get them there with your team seamlessly, which is exciting. So I want to go back to Byron. You're because I think it's a really interesting trend between the physical, digital, and as the other panelists from L'Oreal was saying about IRL and out of home, and like nothing beats it. But I feel like you took me somewhere, Byron, in a good way of like, it is when we're all traveling, we're immersing ourselves in culture, and we are primed to engage in so many different things, and yes, to spend. And I know, like us from Chase say, of course, we want people to spend, but I think it's a really interesting trend around bridging the physical and digital divide. And Nolan, you do it too. But like, could you talk a little bit more about that, and maybe also how you're measuring that, and Nolan, with different clients you work with, of how they track that and see the impact of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think asking someone today that you say you must come into my physical store to buy this would be sort of nuts, right? Because you've got digital channels. I think we're moving towards a time where you say you must come to my website to complete this, it's also going to feel very antiquated. So getting closer to them. I mean, do you want to drag stuff home with you in your bag, or can I just tap and buy and ship it? So you're not even shortening the funnel. You're just eliminating it. There is no funnel at that point. And then it's there waiting for you by the time you get home. And then what we do is we then just take all of that data, give it right back to the brands. I mean, everything we do, the brand's still the merchant of record, first-party data. There's no question around attribution. They're just feeding that back into their machine. I know that someone bought this thing at this place at this time when the weather was a certain way, and that just gets fed right back into the big fat targeting machine for the next opportunity.
Well, it's interesting, before you go, Nolan, also that like just the idea of like the many ways you could choose to engage, of like it doesn't have to just be buy and ship or buy and I'm going to take it home right now, but all the different ways you could possibly engage is super interesting. I know you're leading that obviously with Dispatch. But Nolan, what do you think of Grocery TV?
I think one point that I wanted to make was it's interesting because as we're talking more and more about what a cookieless environment looks like, there are going to be two things that become increasingly more important. One is contextual relevance, and two is first-party data, to Michelle's point. And so I think like for us and the way that we talk to our brands and clients, who you asked about how they're tracking success and measuring success, is like, you have brand lift studies that you can show made an impact. And what we're finding repeatedly is that the more relevant your creative is to the moment, the more brand lift that you'll see as a brand. And obviously then that has downstream effects for the funnel, which you could argue is collapsing anyways, but it has downstream effects that you can actually measure actual performance with. And so I think when we're talking to our brand partners, and especially about like the tourism and travel, again, it is more along the lines of like, how do you make sure that you're talking to customers in a relevant tone of voice? How do you make sure that it is with it's congruent with what you're doing online and in other channels? And then as the panel talked about earlier, like how do you make that IRL moment a lot more relevant for what they're doing and in a way that is very memorable and ultimately leads to that brand lift you're looking for?
Love it. Okay, so I wanted to shift gears to sort of some audience trends, and I know you mentioned the Traveler, which is obviously core to everything at Chase and with the Chase Traveler, but what are some things that you're noticing? I mean, let's start with Michelle around separative destinations and whatnot. But as Chase Travel's more public now and out there with the campaign, what are consumers? What are they doing? How are they engaging? And how do you want them to engage? Michelle, maybe.
We want you to go to chasetravel.com if you have a Chase eligible card. No, I think the point about surrounding, whether it's like tentpole moments or just in an environment where your customers are already engaged, is so critically important. So showing up in those maybe unexpected ways is a way to really capture attention and make an impression. So it's sometimes just, again, showing up and doing something a little bit different. That's what we're trying to do, again, knowing that we have our work cut out for us because there's a lot of choice in travel, right? So you'll see from an out-of-home perspective where, we're at MSG, we're in Times Square, but these are owned and operated assets we have. So it's easy for us to show up in these big splashy places. I think too, it's the new luxury. It's all about taking friction out of people's everyday lives. People are incredibly busy. They have so much going on. And so luxury as we've known it a decade ago is different. It's about creating seamless end-to-end experiences. And so when we up-leveled our travel product, it was really about understanding where there was dissonance, where there was that friction in the travel process. We saw that people didn't really have joy in planning. So how could we make that better? Bookable itineraries, like we take the guesswork out. We have travel advisors to help with that really like one-to-one experience if someone maybe wants to pick up the phone and not necessarily be purely digital. I think you said it really well, which is there's many ways to transact and shop, and it's like showing up in those places where your customers want to transact, right? So I think that's key. I don't know, those come to mind.
And setting yourself up ahead of time to show up, sometimes immediately. If something's happening in the news, can you just flip it on that day? Are you ready to show up somewhere in a certain channel if need be? But yeah, I think frictionless. People booking today are not booking like their parents did. And so they see something on Instagram or wherever they see it, and they're like, I want that. That was the fastest path to getting from I see that to I'm on my way to having it.
Well, and actually, Byron, can you talk about the end game you're doing? Because you made me think of my son. I have a 10-year-old, 8-year-old. My son is all about Minecraft, involved with these things, building worlds, Roblox, exactly. Talk about that.
I mean, again, the idea is meet them where they are in the context and shorten that funnel. I mean, when you're in the middle of a game, or if you're 11:30 at night, you're a new mom, to the example before, you're thumbing or you're sideways or up and down, whichever way it is. And then do you want to leave the thing that you're doing? Generally, no. The idea is just natively it slides up, whether it's mid-funnel, here's my email, give me a code. It's mid-funnel, here's my number, text me about something later. I don't want to talk to anyone. Or it's an Apple Pay button right there. That's it, right? Don't leave the game. Just pause in the background, but you're not getting like booted out to a whole new flow where you start down a separate funnel. And it's not, right, it's time and a place. It's not for a diamond ring, maybe, but it's for a silver pendant, you know. Sometimes there's a discovery journey.
Perfect. Nolan, anything to add on this or good? I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, I think everyone covered it pretty well. I do think that one thing about travel that has always piqued my interest is that on average, people will plan travel about 6 months to a year in advance. But you're seeing that the actual partners that they select, for example, like an airline, is about, roughly 90 days. And so I think that there's an opportunity for every brand in the tourism industry to be really involved in that consideration set all the way through. And then hopefully when, you're getting the right message at the right time. So when they're ready to transact, they're ready to buy now, to your point, you're there to support them, capture that.
Love it. Okay, so we have like 8 minutes left. And we're hanging in there. But we'll do Q&A in a minute. But any sort of last advice or guidance for folks who want to innovate with brand marketing and media and reach travelers or partner with travel related brands, sort of parting wisdom, and then we can open up Q&A. Tough question.
Yeah. I would say don't just know your customers, but know what is the pain point and focus there, and how you and your brand, your product, whatever service you're providing is going to eliminate that pain, right? Because that's so key. I think that's a big one. And travel is inspirational. It's usually where someone's dreaming their next experience, their next memory, either whether they're traveling solo, with friends, with family. And so it's a really captive audience, and one that is just surrounded by amazing experiences and is looking for more experiences. So I would say know the pain points, know what makes them tick, and look at that data, see where they're traveling to.
And deliver the goods. Exactly.
That's right.
I think I'll just double down on what I said before, which is it's not an overnight thing. You have got to give yourself time to install an infrastructure around meeting people where they are in all of these different channels. And not just to show them something, but to show them something that they can actually convert on in that moment. And so think about it in a 3 to 5 year time horizon, but it starts today, so that when something happens, maybe it's in the middle of a game, you're able to get on the Jumbotron and show something that they can then convert on with their phone in that moment, and you've set yourself up to be able to grab it.
Yeah, I think from a publisher perspective, I'd say this isn't unique to the travel and tourism landscape, but don't be afraid to lean on your partners. I mean, if you're a marketer or an agency exec, I think that your partners know their product really, really well and can come up with a lot of really creative ideas that will move the needle, and we can drive on experience that we've had before. And so we're always chomping at the bit, thinking of new creative ideas to bring to brand partners of ours. And so don't be afraid to push us and challenge us on what we can do as well.
I love it. That's the whole spirit of Brand Innovators, to your point, is about innovation. We're here to have the courage and to push each other and to reach new impact and new ground. I mean, otherwise, what are we doing here, everybody? Honestly. Okay. So here we are. We got 5 minutes left. Q&A. We know there's questions out there. You asked questions earlier. Michelle, you got to have a question. Calling out my friend. She's like, no.
I've got one over here.
Okay, we got one. Sweet.
Hey, good afternoon, all. Samuel Collier here with DirecTV Advertising. I wanted to know, Michelle, you talked about alleviating your customers' pain points. What have been your best mediums to tell the story about how Chase Travel will alleviate some of those pain points? And that's my first question. And the second question is, how have you guys planned out getting cultural credibility around being in this travel space? I'm a Chase card holder. It wasn't until I think it was Sapphire Reserved, where my fiance was like, you're not using all the perks. We need to use the travel, which is when I started leaning into it. So how are you all telling that story?
Great question.
So one area that, again, we're new. We just officially launched the new brand at the end of Q1, so certainly have a runway. But I will say we are making big bets within social, right? Because to your point, it's a great place to discover and be inspired. So we're very much working towards being video first, social first, because we are part of a large financial institution. There are some social channels that we cannot play in. So it's really about tapping into those key tastemakers or creators within those social platforms to garner that reach. So that work is certainly underway. And then, I think what's really important as we think about our video first approach, there's a lot of education we have to do. So as he mentioned, like, oh, I had a Sapphire Reserve card, I didn't even know my benefits. That's what we heard time and time again in our research. Card members thought, oh, I just go here to burn points. It's like, well, no, there's actually custom editorial and there's itineraries and there's experiences. So there's a lot of educating we have to do. And we will do that through video, through social, showing up in those ways, because a static quick placement is not going to do it. We have to really shape and shift perception. The other piece of that I'll just quickly mention as we think about the company that we've built, there is definitely that digital piece, but then there's also the way of the travel advisor, and we're actually really modernizing the travel advisor. It's not like your grandparents' travel agent, right? It's leveraging technology to have unique trips planned for you and your family and friends, et cetera. So it's really looking at that continuum of there's high touch, high tech, and even like low touch, high tech. So.
I noticed that Chase is creating a retail media network of its own. How connected are you, and how will you connect with each other?
We're pretty connected. We sit on the same floor, but we are really, really excited about it. I spent a lot of my career at Marriott and Starwood, and as many of you probably know, Marriott has a media network, and there's something to be said for monetizing, your owned assets and giving, whether it's other brands, other companies, access to that first party data. When we think about merchandising within our owned ecosystem, there's something very exciting about how we merchandise within Chase Travel to other travel endemic brands, or perhaps other brands that our card members over-index with purchasing. So I think there's a lot to still figure out. But when you think about leveraging the party of this first party data, we know so much about our card members. Something that it's very exciting to me. I started to geek out is when I was on the travel side, I could only see a sliver of my traveler's share of wallet. We kind of had to guess what they were doing when they weren't staying with Starwood or Marriott. Here, we actually can see it. So there's a really special advantage when you think about personalization and really bringing our card members what they want and the brands they want. So I'm pretty excited to see how it unfolds. Yeah.
We'll take one more over here.
Thanks. So it sounds like CRM data is kind of at the crux of everything that you're doing at Chase. Is it more important to you to reach current cardholder members, or acquire new members by using the portal itself? And then subsequently, is the goal to eventually use your platform to drive further adoption of other products across Chase holistically? Because obviously there's a tremendous amount that you can do once you have that consumer, bring over checking accounts, loans, etc.
Yeah, it's twofold. So when we think about our branded card products, they're all about bringing new customers in. So if I'm a Chase Sapphire Reserve associate, they're thinking about how do I really bring to life the reasons to believe, whether it's travel, et cetera, to bring that new card sign up in. So that's one piece. where I sit, we're really talking to and understanding our existing card members, knowing that today we're only capturing about 10% of their share of travel wallet. 10%, which means they're spending a whole lot of money on travel, not with us, and there is a Chase card in their wallet. So, so when you think about acquisition of new customers, that's one piece, but then nurturing and engaging and building stickiness and loyalty with our existing card members is so critically important to me and my team, because we know that 10% share of travel wallet is peanuts, right? And so we have a lot of work cut out for us. So it's both. And then product continuum, sure, right? Like we think about that all the time. There are starter cards. There are more cards for people that are more, financially settled and have more disposable income. We're starting to think through that, right? As we move card members through their relationship with Chase, so they know, so they're always getting the best product for them. At the end of the day, it's about creating meaningful moments and better experiences for our card members. That's why we're in business.
All right, I think that's going to wrap us up. How about a round of applause for our panelists here?